Have you ever wondered how AI and generative AI are revolutionizing enterprises and their applications? If that is the case, today we have the pleasure of exploring this fascinating topic with Manjeet Singh, a prominent product executive from Salesforce. He's the Senior Director of AI Platform at Salesforce. And this is your host, Raghu Banda. In today's episode on our Extra AI video podcast, we will be talking with Manjeet Singh on the topic of how enterprise applications and consumer applications are transforming in the world of AI and generative AI. A brief background about Manjeet. Manjeet Singh brings a wealth of experience uh, to our discussion, so that is the reason I've invited him. He leads innovative strategies and product development at Salesforce, driving the integration of AI technologies to transform business processes and elevate enterprise applications. His extensive background in AI and enterprise solutions positions him at the forefront of this technological revolution, making him the perfect guide for today's conversation. Beyond his professional achievements, Manjeet is also a very passionate individual about fitness, incorporating it into his daily routine to maintain a balanced and energetic lifestyle. This dedication to fitness not only reflects in his personal discipline, but also his commitment to approaching challenges with vigor and enthusiasm. So, drawing from his rich professional journey and insights that Manjeet is going to share, we will delve into how enterprises can harness AI and generative AI to stay competitive and innovate in today's fast paced market. Stay tuned as we embark on this enlightening episode with Manjeet Singh, exploring the transformative power of AI in the enterprise world and uncovering the strategies to leverage these advancements for success. As always, you'll find more information at the end of the podcast. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the conversation. All right, welcome back to our Extra AI podcast series. And today I'm going to have some interesting conversation with a guest, Manjeet Singh, and we're going to talk about how enterprise applications or enterprises itself are being transformed in this AI wave. I would say Manjeet comes from a beautiful background. Uh, Manjeet, welcome on board.
Raghu, very happy to be here. Um, uh, I'm trying to recall. I think we met a few months ago in a conference, and you're doing a great job. So super excited and looking forward to the conversation.
Great, great. Yeah, one thing which struck me when I met with you in this conference is that you are at the intersection of not only AI but also fitness, which also triggered me quite a bit. Maybe I will start our conversation this way, right? I think any personal or a professional story or a backstory for you to get into this AI wave. I know you've worked in various different organizations, and also maybe if you want to touch up a little bit about your fitness acquisite or fitness background and your how you inspire people, that will also be interesting for our audience.
Yeah, sure. No, I'm glad we are starting there uh, because see the two things I've been very passionate about, specifically in the last 1 decade. One of them is AI, which we will talk a lot more. And the second one is taking care of my own health and fitness. And I broaden the spectrum to not just my families, my friends, and then so it becomes kind of a passion that gets me excited out of the bed every morning. And it's interesting because the way I've been thinking about in the last couple of years is that hey, if you live a very long, healthy life, and if you
Mhm.
do your best work augmented by AI, I
Mhm.
strongly believe we can multiply our impact in the long run. So that's kind of my thinking. So I spend time every day to keep myself fit. And you will see that in I think in our this conversation and some of the places where I post on LinkedIn and other areas. So I think coming back to the question, I think my journey into AI has been pretty organic. Uh, so came from engineering background. So was born and brought up in North India. Went to engineering school. I was okay in STEM, so that was kind of the path I took. Worked in the engineering role, so I kind of see my professional career in two chapters. First decade is working into engineering roles. Worked with different sides of companies,
Mhm.
startup companies, mid-sized companies like HP.
Mhm.
And then after a decade, I was kind of this intersection is, hey, what should I do next? And I started to enjoy these customers side of the angle. I was working with a startup, as you know, you wear multiple hats in a startup, and I became a kind of proxy product manager.
Mhm.
I loved that intersection. I was able to play with my strength of kind of the technical knowledge. So I took it further, did my kind of evening MBA program, and then formally transitioned into a PM role.
Mhm.
Um, I think when we were going through all these cloud transformations, and then when I was at ServiceNow in 2016 and 17 timeframe, that's when I took this kind of the horizontal roles where, hey, how we can bring intelligence into our workflow.
Right.
And that's when we started to kind of, explore with some of these, different predictive models, build out, different use cases like classification, clusterings, and others. Then
Right.
we ended up building our kind of conversational interface called kind of virtual agent. And since then, in the last specifically in the 5 years, is my journey has been into kind of 0 to 1 product journey,
Mhm.
and more importantly, differentiating those product and applications powered by AI.
Mhm.
So I led the new product incubation program at ServiceNow for 3 years, and then did the same for Iron Mountain. And right now, I'm with Salesforce. I'm
Mhm.
senior director of product, and we have Einstein AI is our main initiative,
Right.
and the part that I work on is bringing this new generative AI layers on the top to open up new use cases across our product portfolio. So it's been fascinating. I enjoy learning. The space is changing so fast, and I think we are living in a great time. So very, very bullish about the impact these tools and technology are going to create.
Beautiful, beautiful, amazing, amazing background, Manjeet, and amazing journey that you have highlighted here. Uh, any current AI advancements? I know this is now maybe it's beaten to death. I know because there's a lot going on. But any
Right.
specific thing that you are very intrigued what's happening around? Any particular thing that you want to bring up?
Yeah, sure. So I'll pick on two threads, right? So one thread is, hey, what's going, because I've been working in this AI B2B space
Right.
for last 8 years. So it's a very well defined market. It's very well defined kind of tool set. Multiple companies are serving that market.
Hmm.
So one thread I've been kind of looking into that, hey, what happens to this, the current way of working, current way of workflows, current way of automation? Will
Hmm.
that get disrupted by this new advancement? Let's say, starting with the this current word, let's say the stack of generative AI and all that. And then there's kind of the different definitions are there. It's like, hey, you're starting with the conversational AI, then you go into taking actions, then
Hmm.
you go into even doing the full planning and more kind of the agentic workflow you might
Right.
hear,
Right.
and then maybe someday fully autonomous enterprise or autonomous workflow. And I think this reminds me the journey of autonomous kind of driving cars. We define level
Right.
one, level two, level. So that's the one track. The second track I'm really personally excited about is I think the AI plus robotics. combined. And so some companies are doing amazing work. And I think this is where, see, the one way I see is like going back few years ago that AI will disrupt, blue collar jobs,
Right.
but it's happening the other way around.
Right.
Until this AI plus robotics kind of happens, and I'm using job as a kind of reference here, but like let's think of the number of tasks, the repetitive tasks we all do.
Mhm.
How many of those can be like offloaded to these AI based solutions? So I think one of my use cases, hey, can these AI powered robots can fold my laundry? So
Right.
and I think the day it can start to do it. There's some interesting demos out there, right? The companies and because then it will really, I think, the big part of the way where there's a humanoid robot or a different form of robot really becoming more intelligent using these multi-model capabilities and able to open up net new use cases across the industry segments.
Right, right. So beautiful. I really like the way you have spun it around when you talked about the second aspect, right? Like about how AI and robotics, the actual marriage happening between AI and robotics, which can create the wonders of what we have been thinking about AI from our sci-fi movies of 70s and 80s. So when that realistically happens, I think there is a lot of potential benefits to the society if you do
Mhm.
it the right way. I think maybe we'll go into some of these aspects in our conversation, but maybe we'll take a quick break, come back, and then get into the nitty gritty or a bit more detailed conversation.
All right, sounds good.
All right, welcome back. So, yeah, beautiful that I think you've mentioned these two different aspects of the uh, AI innovations that are currently happening, right? Like whether it is the B2B innovations happening, the tools, infrastructures, and all, which is obviously we all know it's happening at a rapid pace. And the second aspect that you brought up is about the perfect integration of the marriage between AI and robotics. Realistically, when that happens, I think it could even can define and design much more better for the societal purposes or the communities around. So going into this a little further, I would like to now get into a bit of the aspects about we know that AI is transforming now. AI and now with generative AI, it's transforming a lot of businesses and a lot of industries. So, in
Mhm.
your opinion, what are those uh, significant changes AI is bringing to enterprises or enterprise applications, or what can be the significant changes? Maybe two parts of the question, right? What is happening and what can happen? Mm.
Right, right. No, I think that that's such a great question, and then it's I think the top of the mind for as I'm having conversation with a lot of customers, and then what hearing in because hey, we have been doing this all the POCs and demo from last 18
Mhm.
months, right? Let's say starting from ChatGPT as an example, from the acceleration standpoint, and then understanding the potential and new use cases that it can enable. And if we really look at, let's say, if I put a business PM hat, and if I say
Mhm.
like, hey, I don't care about flashy Twitter demo.
Mhm.
Let's talk about reality
Mhm.
where AI is delivering a measurable value. Okay,
Right.
whether we use ROI value, and then so I think there's some areas where it is fulfilling promise to certain extent. Okay, so
Right.
let's start there. Because see, the one way you say is like, hey, applying AI within an enterprise kind of
Mhm.
segment, let's say department by department, and then so that's one lens to look at. Okay, so I think in that lens, the development space, the software development space, or let's say the developer persona, I
Right.
think there are real value add in terms of the productivity improvement for developers. And this stats are coming from all across.
Hmm.
The how much code is now written by AI
Hmm.
in, let's say, GitHub, right? So the
Right.
GitHub Copilot, how many millions of developers are using, and then there are also some metrics to quantify it. Like, let's say that X millions of code is written, lines of code is written in a day. How much of it is AI, and how much of it is actually accepted? Okay,
Hmm.
and then you can take it further. Okay, was this, quality was high, and then, but I think this, I think a very promising where it is kind of adding value. The second, I think the, let's say, the department or area I see is customer service.
Hmm.
Um, there's some, even before, let's say, this generative AI, predictive AI was already adding value to a large extent, because all these customer support service providers, or the software service provider, had the tools kind of in two ways. One
Hmm.
is you provide this conversational interface, so driving self-service, and then companies like ServiceNow, like, okay, you're getting these many tickets, and if 20% of that get deflected or handled by your bot, that's a
Hmm.
significant saving, right? Because otherwise they're going into somebody's picking up the phone and responding, and that really helped. Like, if you look into when we went into COVID, some of
Hmm.
these self-service frequently asked questions that were handled 24/7, companies that has those capabilities and tools in place, they were the
Right.
real beneficiary. And now in the customer service, how you can generate, let's say, quick response to the customer query, how you can summarize a lengthy customer conversations, how you can transcribe, let's say, the audio conversations we are having.
Right.
So I
Right.
think there's a lot of value being added. It's you can measure it, you can define KPIs, you can link those to business KPIs. Then you go into, I think, the marketing, some area in marketing, because one of the big tasks in marketing is content generation. So I think,
Right.
big help this text generation models, and then the use cases here and there. But I would say these are the two or three, um, the references, and I'm seeing real data and
Right.
promise, which is very
Hmm.
encouraging. Because then I always refer back to this term like AI washing, right? There's so much money and investment is happening across the stack.
Yeah.
How much money is being spent on GPUs and infrastructures, and how much money is spent onto, let's say, the model levels, and then,
Right.
let's say, the UI layers, but the biggest, I think, you cannot talk about AI without talking about data,
Right.
and picking up the, like, hey, data is the fuel, but do you, even though these foundational or frontier models are good at doing multiple tasks,
Hmm.
to really extract the most value out of them in a real
Hmm.
production scenario, it has to be, instrumented further. And that's where you need to, like, tailor it with your data, whether you do it through prompting, whether you do it through, your RAG system, whether you do it through fine tuning. So
Hmm.
what that means is, the data is still fragmented, and that's where a lot of enterprises are struggling. And that what makes it to, like, okay, this developer persona is fine, maybe some customer service persona is fine, but
Hmm.
how can I make it really, really like the same level of impact, or even half the impact into my sales, my legal, my finance, so let me pause here. I think that's the one lens I look at,
Hmm.
and from as a product person, I was like, okay, if it's not, adding value, demos are demos, they're good, but how many of those use cases are actually being used in the production? I think that's
Right.
the real test. We are still early. I think, with the broader market standpoint, we are kind of still in the early stage.
Right. Beautiful. I echo with the thoughts that you have brought up, Manjeet. I believe the productivity gains of how you could make things develop faster, whether it is in the software development or building applications or executing applications, or whether it is dealing with customer. responses or customer queries, or whether
Hmm.
it is kind of taking the content to the market and then positioning it. I think there is a lot of potential and a lot of development already happening. In the last week, I think I've been to one of these conferences locally here, and there is now this talk. I believe I like the way they brought it up. Like you were also mentioning that now we do not know how much of the code is being generated by AI versus how much realistically will happen with humans, which means that there is going to be, of course, a lot of human in the loop involvement will be there, but an emphasis I heard in the conference is about the digital employee. I think the term,
Right,
it somehow it struck with me because now when I say digital employee, of course, this is the AI agent.
right,
So how there is going to be a wave of these digital employees, like people will be
right.
using, so you will have to handle this. So in this context, what do you see the enterprises? What are the challenges that enterprises or even smaller firms should look about when they are integrating a lot of AI into their solutions? Maybe in your product hat, I think if you come up, or
Right.
maybe in your engineering hat, I think maybe it comes uh,
Right.
different aspects, right?
Yeah. So I think let's take it as a two-part
Hmm.
kind of the exploration here, and I'll share some learning and insight.
Hmm.
So I think the one is this idea of AI for, and you name the role, right? Let's
Hmm.
say AI engineer, AI data analyst, AI developer, and then and you take that thread, and I know there's different names being used,
Right.
coworker, but the way I kind of simplify it is like, hey, there is this kind of, let's say, the co-pilot that's is it's on the side, kind of it's helping you, it's serving you the informations, it's giving you recommendation. But if you want these co-pilot to take action, then those things become and if they can reason and if they can plan, then you can, different companies will name different things. But I think this digital worker or digital coworker, I like the term coworker better.
Mhm.
Um, and if this is kind of, let's say happening, but even before we go there, I would, let's say, look at the current state, because see, the things will become more complex, because here we are talking about multiple agents talking to each other, there's handoff happening, there's a memory, long-term memory, short-term memory, a kind of technical level. I think the even before, let's say, the single agent scenario or simple task like summarizations, we have some key challenges. Those challenges are not new. I think the form is a little different.
Mhm.
And what I mean by that is one challenge that I see is how do you evaluate and test these systems? Okay, so
Right.
that's where I think every customers who is uh, beyond POC stage, and it's like, hey, I'm just kind of the opening it for one department or more. Now
Mhm.
there is into point like, okay, um, how do we evaluate? And the second is how do you monitor, right? And
Mhm.
these I think the areas and touch points are not new. Even if you, let's say, in typical software development life cycle, you go through the the development, you go through the test phase, you go through the deployment phase. But here the big difference is that these models are a black box to a large extent. The output is non-deterministic.
Mhm.
The input is, you can be, it's an art and science, right? So it's not like in the predictive world you can say, hey, just score this opportunity for me. It's a very the fixed kind of API call, function call, and it's giving you the output. Here you can ask the question in like 20 different ways and you might get 10 different answers. So that makes it very challenging. So where I think a lot of in fact this week I attended one conference uh, 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 around monitoring and observability. And the key theme there was, hey, how do we
Mhm.
monitor? How do we create test data set? And how do we evaluate and improve? Right.
Right. Right.
So people are not worried about models. There are a lot of choices. Every month there is one model is beating another model. Um, so you can start with, let's say, the public benchmark, But
Right.
ultimately, you, as let's say if you're a financial customer in banking domain or healthcare domain, or you have to figure it out your use case specific test cases and evaluate, and that's hard. It takes
True.
time, and that's what I would say is doing a POC and a demo is 20% effort. Rest
Hmm.
80% is the getting ready for production. So which means testing it out, tuning it as needed, then monitoring that data, and then creating that feedback loop as your users are giving feedback. How do you factor that in and kind of improve? I think first, there's a lot of companies and these tool chains, they're trying to solve it,
Hmm.
and then in parallelly with this digital worker concept and these agentic workflows and that coming into place.
Hmm.
So still, I think in the agentic workflow, there's a lot of design patterns are there.
Right.
There's no go to patterns, just like a lang chain was, I think, a pretty
Hmm.
good one for the simple text generation task. So I think that the whole stack needs to be evolved. It's moving fast. I'm very hopeful that in next 9 to 12 months,
Hmm.
um, these things will become more easier, where there's a lot of open source options, and then you can start to kind of build out. But ultimately, I mean, I will look into the kind of the same fundamental things. Like, what is my problem? Do I have the data? Do I have the clean data? If not, how would I do that? How would I test it? And then how would I monitor and measure the value?
Hmm.
But there are challenges all across the stack, and then it requires a new tool set. The
Hmm.
previous version of tool set is not enough.
Right. Right. I think some of the points that you mentioned are very important. Of course, the whole aspects that you mentioned are really striking enough. But you've mentioned something about developing a prototype or developing the demos aspect, which we have been doing. I think the first, I would say 18 to 24 months of this generative AI wave or has been focused on that. But now 2024, I think from Q2, Q3, a lot of emphasis and focus has been on productionalizing this for real
Right.
use. I think that is one thing really struck me when you're talking about how do you do these realistically, how do you test these uh, scenarios that you have done in the prototyping phase using your data sets, and then how do you take it to the production line, productionize it, and then how do you monitor them and then incorporate that feedback loop and make it
Yeah.
better. Because this is where many enterprises, whether it is Salesforce or SAPs or
Yeah.
Workdays of the world, uh, as we all know that these enterprise applications are sitting on the top of the chain. Uh,
Hmm.
there is a lot going on. There's a lot of focus currently on these NPUs, the GPUs or these chips, and then on top of that you have the infrastructure layer and the tools layer, and then is the applications layer. But pretty fast things are going to hit to that stage where you will have to realize how you can make uh, you're solving some problems. So this is where
Right.
the aspect of you also briefly talked about agentic workflows, right? And
Hmm.
agentic workflows. Maybe can we dive a bit into that and understand, for the sake of the audience, maybe taking any example, how we can um, make it better for the end user when we talk about this so that it can um, kind of tie to the end result or the outcome.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure. So let me, I think, do it in a way where if somebody is not very technical, they can at least get a sense
Right, right.
what's happening, and then right. So, and then let me start with what are the core requirements that
Hmm.
specifically in the enterprise segment is when it comes down to the model. So
Hmm.
the three things that are most important. One is the quality.
Hmm.
uh, how much quality is needed for
Hmm.
you as a customer, and it's very personalized by like a customer who is in a legal domain. They cannot tolerate hallucination, they cannot tolerate they want
Right.
pretty much 100% quality. But quality does not come for free. It has, the cost involved. Then the question comes, should I use a small model? Should I use a big model? Should I, fine tune? And the third aspect is the control. What sort of control, the guardrails, the trust metrics, the bias, what I want. And it's difficult to find the equilibrium between these, and I think that's where the conversations usually when I have with customers, can start. Which one is more important? Because then I can guide you both from the model standpoint, both from how to write, how do you write prompting, and then right. So now let's take it into the further where we have a complex workflow. And the way I would define complex is that you ask, let's say, hey, ask for a task that complete this task for me. And then the task has to be not just it's not a one action, like summarize this text for me. That's a very simple, I would say, actions, because summarization is your intent, your ask, and then here's the text. But if you can say that, hey, you have to do this task, and then you have to identify all the possible options. You stack rank them. You reason with them, just like we do as a human. Pick the one which will make most sense for a given scenario. And then that could be one task, multiple tasks, and the task can be executed behind the scene across different systems, and then you go ahead and then kind of the execute those tasks. I think that if I pick an example, let's say I plan to go to Cancun next week. Now I need to book my hotel, I need to book my flight, and then today I have to kind of use 2-3 different tools and then figure it out, compare, and then versus I think that if once we have these, let's say, tool chain together, then what I would say is, hey, I want to go to Cancun from next Monday to Friday. My budget is $2,000, and I'm looking for a hotel that serves the breakfast, kids friendly, and and it has to be near the beach. So basically, I can just tell that as I'm talking to a travel agent.
Right.
And then these systems will take that as a goal and will figure out the best combination. So basically, you divide it into the tasks. Okay, we have to book the flights, we have to book the hotel, here's the criterias, and then go into these databases, test the information. Now stack rank, because I gave you the restriction. Hey, my trip has to be in $2,000. And figure it out, and then show me is like, okay, here's your options, and I'll say, and that's very human in the loop. Probably so this is the decisions where cost is involved. And similar way in the enterprise, let's say if I pick a CRM use case quickly, in a CRM use case, if you're a salesperson, and you might say, hey, go to our opportunity, let's say this quarter's opportunity list. Find me the top 10 opportunities and write a response by researching on those companies, and then send that email through Slack and send that email through email. So that what it becomes is it's a multi-agent scenarios. And that's where one agent will go to the opportunity score, will give you the top 10. The other agents will take those company names, will do the research. Third agent will do the generation task. So it's basically the the combination of your model, AI model. It's a combination of how you orchestrate, those agents, passing on the input and output, and remembering it, and then reasoning it if the response is bad. So it becomes I think it's fairly, it requires a new architecture. So that's where companies, and then, as a industry, we are trying to solve what will be a best architecture to build these out. and then build it in a way where it makes it scalable, right? From the unit
Mhm.
economic standpoint, it makes sense because what's top of the mind for customer is when they ask these AI questions or give them a kind of request. Now
Mhm.
they want to know how much will it cost, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because otherwise, if it ended up costing like a become big query, and then if it ended up costing, let's say in my the Cancun trip example, if
Mhm.
the query cost me $200, I'll probably no, I'll just ask the agent to do it, the real human.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of the
Right. Right. No, I think that's a great example that you have quoted, both on the regular consumer front as well as the enterprise front, because these two examples, when you have explained about the various steps involved with the various agentic items involved here, you're touching a lot of different individual or tasks or siloed items in the past. I know there's a lot of disruption already happening even before the inception of these or these generative AI capabilities. But now with this, a lot more disruption is going to happen and a lot more things are going to change. So before going into the ethical aspects and other things, which I would want to touch it very briefly, what do you think? How do you envision these things getting in the next? I will not go further than 5 years, but the next 3 to 5 years, what do you see the role of AI like evolving
Mhm.
in the next 5 years or 3 to 5 years, particularly in this context of this very easy to use or very uh, daily usable applications, whether it is a consumer application or whether it is an
Right.
enterprise application. Any few thoughts that would come up in your mind about how AI is going to impact and disrupt this, and how
Yeah.
people should uh, accordingly change or accordingly it's not that I think there is this scare, right? Like, okay, AI is coming, it's changing everything, and am I gonna lose my job? But no, I think, but how do
Right.
you prepare yourself, like, or how do you
Yeah.
think that it can help you benefit?
Yeah. Yeah. So I'll tell you my ideal kind of
Mhm.
wish kind of the that how so see that we have been using AI quite a lot, and many times it's in our consumer life, it's invisible to us.
Right, right.
So I think my expect my the goal that I'm driving for some of the product is like, hey, uh, I know from the marketing and sales standpoint, we want to see AI and then sell those products. But I think that from the use standpoint, from the experience standpoint, we have to make it as invisible as possible. So call it
Hmm.
like invisible AI.
Hmm.
So just to kind of give you a quick example, right? In our day-to-day life, um, the one feature that has been around quite a lot, recommendation. It shows up in so many places, whether you're watching a YouTube or Netflix or going on to Amazon, and those systems have gotten so good. They understand your preferences, they understand your behavior, they understand and personalizing those news feeds and those product items for you. And then I think that's a kind of great reference.
Hmm.
Now, as we build out these systems, let's call these coworkers, not workers, right? Because it's like kind of, their job is to really make me more productive, my team's more productive, and really augment me. And then this idea of like you handle all the mundane tasks,
Hmm.
and I will focus on more strategic, more projects, and so we can do more, right? So if that's kind of the if I take that as a thought process,
Hmm.
uh, then I think the part of your question is, as an individual, no matter what your role is, engineering, product, sales, marketing, and how do you kind of prep yourself for the next 5 years?
Hmm.
Uh, Two words come to mind: continuous learning. There is
Hmm.
no other way around it. And I think the people who learn to use these tools,
Hmm.
uh, they can, I think, unlocking their superpower in a
Hmm.
way. Just to give you a very concrete example, right? When these days I'm kind of in my role, you have to write kind of a lot of product docs and strategy
Right,
doc and
right,
all those. And I'm not starting with a blank slate. I'm
right.
using these tools with the current version
Hmm.
of tools. to give me a draft, and I call it, hey, it's a shitty draft.
Mhm.
And then I will sit down, think critically, and bring in the product discovery and those, and then I'll kind of refine that prompt. And it's significantly cut short my time. If I had to write a PRD, it used to take, let's say, a few days. Now at least I can get the first good draft, and then of course you kind of iterate. um, how the question is, I think the trickier is, in fact, a couple of people asked, and I did a small post on LinkedIn, is
Mhm.
how do you stay up to date? There's so much going on, right?
True, true.
It's even hard to keep track of these top models. Forget about the other 500 models that you see on Hugging Face. Even
Mhm.
if you want to see here these top, players like OpenAI and Google and what's it, it's very overwhelming. So
Mhm.
you have to a little bit of take a more targeted approach here. So let me break it down for you in three steps. So first is, let's say, whatever your role is, and
Mhm.
then you see that first is like, okay, in my role, how can I best use these tools? So start with that lens.
Right.
And what I need to learn, like from the using the tool itself. Forget about like, really what technology, what's happening and AI robotics, and you don't have to worry about that. First is, okay, if I have Chat GPT or Gemini, or like, how would I use that for my benefit, right? And it's
Mhm.
very kind of, just a matter of getting your hands dirty, just learning the basic prompting. And the best way to learn is, honestly, I see a lot of people, they create their big spreadsheet of prompt. Anywhere they see the prompt, the copy paste. And no, I mean, just start kind of the writing, and then in a week you probably,
Mhm.
of course, the new ideas, new reference you can do, but you don't have to copy paste thing and make it your own prompt, because then, yeah, you're not really exploiting the real benefit of these tools. The second thing is, based on your role, let's say you learn to use with the current version. But see, the market is moving fast, and you don't have to stay at the top of everything. It's not like
Right.
fear of missing out. But for your given role, you a little bit of target and identified few very credible sources.
Mhm.
And sources, I mean, let's say identify five, six people you can follow on Twitter, or let's say podcasts like this, or on LinkedIn, and
Mhm.
curate your feed.
Mhm.
Newsletter is another great one these days. I love to spend a couple of hours. In fact, today, every Saturday morning, I kind of those go through those newsletter that have came in, and that brings me up to speed. What
Right.
happened during the week, because the week was pretty busy. I was not able to
True.
kind of see. Uh, but you have to find that time. I'm not saying you do it on the weekend. Sometime Friday afternoon, and so basically, but put that time in the calendar to dedicate time at the minimum 2 hours, and then on those topics, if topics relates to you, read it. Otherwise, ignore it.
Right.
Right, for your given role, and then continue to, I would say, talk to obvious one, your customers, your the anybody you can find who is kind of passionate about that topic.
Mhm.
I think that's the best way. I see this three-part approach is what I do, and I think I'm doing a pretty decent job in staying up to date, and actually, not as like really, I don't feel overwhelmed. Let me put it this way.
Right.
I don't
Right.
feel overwhelmed. I feel more in control. I know what I want to do for the product line that I'm leading, and also from my personal learning and growth standpoint. So um, it's fascinating.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I really echo your thoughts, and I think uh, identifying and kind of putting down the top three things, I think realistically brings the folks, I think, how you can attempt and how you can stay prepared for the next 3 to 5 years with a lot of things happening. I really like the aspect of that. Now, coming to the most important question, or I say a term as the $1 million or the $1 billion question of the uh, Extra AI podcast.
Mhm.
I bring this question in different ways, and when I talk with guests. Uh, what is that? I know with great responsibility, with let me put it this way: with great power comes great responsibility. I know there are ethics, data privacy, and bias, and all these are the things very are thought a lot, are talked about a
Mhm.
lot. What is your um, personal opinion, or what is your personal suggestion or advice uh, for entrepreneurs coming in this space, right? Like how, because we are all now uh, thinking and building and deploying and implementing AI solutions. But what are those things that you need to keep in mind so that uh, these ethical aspects or bias or data
Right.
privacy, you keep into these aspects and then build better applications. I put this as a million or a billion dollar question because the market, I think, eventually gets there. Just like how when these
Right.
technologies like the nuclear technologies or other things came, I think obviously I wouldn't say it is. Uh, I don't know, but this might be as. I think it all depends on how you use the technology, right? Like what are the
Right.
things that what are your thoughts that how you can
Right.
advise?
Yeah. No, great question. And it's definitely a $1 million question. Um, so let me answer it this way, right? And you mentioned I'll target my response more into the builders and then let's say the entrepreneurs and then so you go through this journey of, let's say, no matter what stage you are at, like, let's say this is called 0 to 1 journey. Okay.
Mm-hmm,
That's stage one.
mm-hmm,
Then the second is, let's say, 2 to 1,000 journey. You can think
mm-hmm,
of it as number of customers or your revenue. And then there's two different journeys. And then let me come back to the core of the questions. Um, and it's there's no kind of right answer. Like, should you build a system that
mm-hmm,
is 100% secure, 100% bias free, no toxicity, and then like when you are in the 0 to 1 journey,
mm-hmm,
and then or to ultimately into your point, right? The market will get there, and the products that wins, which are secure and trustworthy, and meets the requirement that
mm-hmm,
the customer has. So my advice has been that specifically in the, let's say, generative AI and LLM world, it is very easy to build demos and prototype.
mm-hmm,
If you're starting out there, any idea that you have as an entrepreneur, or if you are creating a proposal in your company, it's talking to sales, marketing, as like, hey, can we try? I would say, uh, think about it, like where the data will store, how data will transport. Let's say if I'm calling OpenAI,
mm-hmm,
so the basic kind of data flow questions, who has the
mm-hmm.
access, and make sure the last thing you want is knowingly or unknowingly leaking the data, which
Right.
is should not go out of your trust boundaries or your network. Once you have that understanding that, hey, we are not leaking our data, and then we're connecting here, I would say other aspect of toxicity and others, table it for the
Mm-hmm,
time
mm-hmm.
and go as fast as that you can to build out your POCs and demo and bring excitement. Because the one thing you want to validate is, can this thing really work?
Right.
Okay, we'll come down to how do we make it, let's say 100% quality or no health hallucinations, and then that's a different kind of the optimization problem.
Mm-hmm,
So spend their time, and this with LLMs. I mean, if you the big difference I see is in the before LLM journey,
mm-hmm,
teams have to spend at least 6 months or a year in just taking one task and then feature engineering and creating that use case. And 1 year is spent, it's data science project. Here, even if you don't have a data science, you can still go and create your POC. Right? Take it to your use case and make sure you just say how to design those prompts, and then you may have to connect with your data set. If you want a question answering system, upload your PDF, make sure you're not leaking your data, test it out, examples, and then that gives you the confidence that, is this technology solving a problem for me or not? Okay, so that's the stage one. So
mm-hmm.
I would say don't hold yourself, and then see, otherwise the market is moving fast, competition is moving fast. If as a startup, if you ended up solving that too much of that in here, competition will surpass you, and I've seen that happen with a bunch of startups. um, but then the as you starts to have, like, okay, there's a the product opportunity there, and there's a potential product market fit. Because if your demo starts to resonate and those, and if you're building an enterprise product, then you very quickly you have to break down those requirements around. In Salesforce world, we call it trust layer, and we have a very kind of robust trust story, like AI plus data plus trust, because we serve hundreds of thousands of customers, and and the trust Salesforce that their data is secure, and that's where we very quickly we ended up kind of building this trust layer. So anything that goes in and out, we are able to monitor it. We have the guardrail in place. We show you all these bunch of metrics. What's the toxicity score? What's the bias score? What's the hallucinations? And then showing the visibility to the customers, and then give them the knobs so that they can tune up and down, right? So that's where then this phase two is where you will really think about fine tuning the different at the data level, at the model level, at the prompt level, and build out the part that I was talking earlier, a more real world evals, like how you test for your given use case, and the continuous monitoring. And as long as you have those pieces in place, even if things are going south in your solutions, you can quickly iterate. Let's say, okay, in certain scenarios, my model is still hallucinating. You will look into your production logs, see, hey, did we test this scenario or not? No. I mean, then now take those examples, bring that into your, either you update your prompt or tuning data set, refine your model, and then have those as your golden data set. The next time you release, you make sure that those scenarios are not happening. So as long as you provide that feedback loop to the customers, and in the enterprise, the higher you go into the enterprise segment chain, customer expect more, these kind of capabilities. Not so much in SMB because they don't have teams; they want the system to just work, and the invisible AI concept. But I think if you're talking about large enterprises and those, they have lot more systems, very diverse data, and others, and then so you need to provide these kind of different visibility layers, AI explainability, for example, right? Yeah.
Beautiful. I think I really love the way you put it in the aspect of how you build, how you should start with that trust. The trust factor is very important because that is where I think you can build your whole foundation, and on top of that, then I think you can do wonders going on. It's been great chatting with you on this lovely and very interesting topic. Before we close the conversation, any key takeaways that you would like to give to the audience? I know we did talk about that, but
Right.
I think any high-level key takeaways that you would like to provide?
Yeah, no, I think what comes to mind is first is prioritize learning, because this space you cannot survive or thrive without learning. Let me put it this way. Then this phrase is like, hey, AI will not replace you. But if you don't learn to use AI, then it will replace you, right? And that's very true. And I think the second is coming back to where we started. These AI's waves will come and go. Take care of yourself. Give yourself 30 minutes every day to whatever you like, yoga or the running, or I do cross training. What I mean by that is mix of many things, because that framework really works well for me in terms of mobility and how do you stay kind of pain free, and then and then I think keep learning. If you're let's say if you're starting today, you're not late. Let me tell you this. It's a matter, there's beautiful, great resources out there. You can quickly learn this basic concept, like I was mentioning, prompting, how to build RAG pipeline, and then when in scenarios, when do you need fine tuning and which use cases. And so I think that the high quality learning content and resources is a problem of past, not if you just spend just even on one platform, LinkedIn, is good enough. And learn it, try it. That's the best way.
Right.
and stay healthy. If you do it for a long time, you will have impact no matter what your role is.
Beautiful, beautiful. I think I was about to ask that, and but you brought that up because I know being one of those fittest product executives, you brought that aspect of how do you keep yourself healthy and fit? Because if not, I think whatever you do, everything is gone. Like you said, these
Yeah,
AI waves or tech waves come and go, but it's always good that you take care of yourself.
yeah.
Beautiful. Nice having this detailed conversation with you. I think we'll love to get you back sometime again. But have a nice and wonderful afternoon.
Thanks,
Thanks for
Raghu.
taking this.
Good.
Thanks for doing this
Yeah,
on a
no.
weekend.
Yeah, no, good. Good chatting with you, and enjoy your weekend.
All right, let's wrap up this episode now. Thank you so much, Manjeet, for sharing your very valuable insights on how enterprises and enterprise applications are transforming in this age of AI and generative AI. Your expertise and passion have truly made this a compelling and enlightening discussion. And of course, some of the tips that you have provided on the fitness and the lifestyle also are very much interesting and definitely are needed in this fast changing world. To our audience, to our Extra AI audience, thank you for tuning into this podcast of Extra AI. We hope you found our conversation with Manjeet Singh as inspiring and as informative as we did with other conversations. Make sure that you stay glued to our podcast conversations. We are available on all the podcasting platforms. Uh, and of course, we are also available on YouTube under the channel Akebanda. As if you have any further questions, feel free to reach out to Manjeet directly since I'll be tagging him in the LinkedIn post. Alternatively, you could also reach out to me, Raghu Banda, on LinkedIn or my Twitter handle Arkebanda or Threads handle Arkebanda, and I can put you in touch with Manjeet. Of course, you can also reach out to our website extraai.com, xtrawai.com, and you'll find humongous amount of other episodes, interesting episodes in the realm of AI, where you can get a lot of information. We are planning for many more interesting episodes that are lined up in our season 10, basically featuring a lot of industry leaders and experts where we will continue to have these kind of interesting conversations and interesting insights from these different leaders and their perspectives on the latest trends and innovations. Stay tuned, and we will see you in the next episode of Extra AI. Until then, have a good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are tuned in from. Happy predicting the future with AI technologies. This is your host, Raghu Banda, signing off. Thank you, and bye bye now.